I think it would be great to have someone like that serving as the Commissioner for Health in Nigeria. So for me, the persons that make up the list, I've actually mentioned those who I see as reward for performance. I've also mentioned those who it's reward for competence. Like I said, we have professors on the list, we have ambassadors, we have architects, we have legal practitioners on the list. So it's let me say to an extent it's commendable. I've also talked about the issue of having 7 women out of 28. That is women make up 1/4 of the total number of ministers so far sent to the house for screening. So it's an improvement. I'm not sure we've had this kind of number before. It's an improvement from the presidency, and we hope to have more improvement on that.
Well, Barrister, looking at the composition, yes, of course, what is your take on the gender, composition of that list? Do you think the president was fair in terms of dealing with gender? Of course, many will tell you during the campaign that we will give women and youth priority. What is your take based on what the president has done with his list?
There was this old list that went round, before this final list came out. Now, if you look at that old list and look at what eventually came out, some names that appeared in the old list, we are still seeing them in this new list. The truth is, those lists were not correct. As the chairman of APC, that probably made them drop his name. And then some other political issues. That, of course, this list that dragged a lot. I think we're supposed to have the list last week, Wednesday, and going and coming, it delayed until yesterday. So I believe those lists might not be absolutely wrong. It's just that the politicking and all that, they were still playing politics on it, whether it should go, whether it should fly, or whether it should not fly, and all that. So for me, we cannot condemn those lists. They had iota of truth in them, because we are seeing some names here that were in all those lists, and so it's one of all those things. We always have rumored lists. Immediately after the elections, we even had lists that came out, but then we now have an authentic list that has names that were not hitherto mentioned, but then they are now um, they are now surfacing.
Well, before the unveiling of this list, Barrister Akintoye, we had, some lists making the round. And interestingly, some persons were fingered as likely ministers, although some persons said those lists were not, the real list. But as it stands right now, we've seen the real list, and one would say most of the persons who appeared in the list that were making the round made the list at this point. Take, for instance, the likes of El-Rufai were fingered as part of that list. The likes of Nyesom Wike was also fingered, and here we have them forming part of the list. But the issue here is, many would want to say, before the president, picked the likes of Akpabio and Abbas, we had that speculation that the president will settle for these individuals. Right now, we're looking at the APC chairman replacement. People are saying it's going to be Ganduje. Right now, although that is yet to be settled, but of course, looking at the ministerial list, what do you make of this leak? What would the presidency of Tinubu look like, when we have this leak continuously?
We have professionals on the list. We have persons of timber, persons of we have Dele Alake, who is already serving as about her. We have, I've also talked about David Umahi. We've talked about Nyesom Wike. One of the things, well, though someone would say that Nyesom Wike is here as a rebel, someone who is rebelling or who has rebelled. against his own party. Yes, but one of the interesting thing, or one of the good thing about this is that the president has extended a hand of fellowship to a non-member of his political party. You know, despite all that happened, we saw all that happened, but this is somebody who is not a flag bearing member of the APC, and now he's been made a minister. In fact, he's a known and just finished serving governor under another political party, and is now being made a minister in this government. I think the last time we had something like that was during the second tenure of President Olusegun Obasanjo in 2003, when he was re-elected as president. At that time, he appointed persons from the then ANPP and AD as ministers in government and as special advisors. So it is good when we have persons from the opposition, in government. It helps bring a level of balance, which is one of the things we really need in Nigeria. When we have people that see things from different perspectives, it helps to bring that balance. So it's good having somebody from another political party, a loyalist to another political party, to serve in this party. We've also talked about El Rufai and how much he supported the cause of the party. He might have not supported the candidates, but one thing is he always settled for whatever the party has settled for and showed his loyalty to the party. So I believe that is also being rewarded by his name being on this list. And then there has been reports that he's to be made Minister of Power. Well, whatever it is, one of the things he said before this list came out, long before, I think before he even ended his tenure in office, he said that if he has served in a particular office, he has no intention of looking back at that same office. If he has served as, it's just like, of course, constitutionally, he can't even go back to become a governor. But then, remember, he has served as the minister of the FCT. So that office definitely is let me say, he's most likely not going back to that office to serve as a minister of FCT. So, but there has been report that he might be Minister of Power or Minister of Works, whichever one. He shows a lot of competence, apart from the fact that he takes laws into his hands on several occasions. I've also talked about Lateef Fagbemi, a prominent and well-grounded senior advocate of Nigeria, who is most likely to come in as the Attorney General of the Federation. Now, to have Mr. Lateef Fagbemi as the Attorney General of the Federation, I strongly believe that he would come in to correct most of the errors and blunders of the past Attorney General. We have to be frank on this. The Attorney General, made a lot of mistakes. He did so many things that were not correct. He defended many things that were wrong. He said many things that were just not correct. Legally, they were not correct. By the Constitution, they were not correct. So many interpretations of the Constitution that did not go down well. And then that is why we saw situations where the AG is taking the National Assembly to court on interpretation or to change a particular position of the Electoral Act and all that. Now, I believe strongly that the coming in of Lateef Fagbemi as the Attorney General, if that will be the portfolio he will be given, would correct many of the errors and the blunders that happened during the time of Malami. So being an astute lawyer grounded in the knowledge of law and practice, I believe we would have an excellent time having him as the Minister of Justice and the Attorney General of the Federation. We have Wahid Adebayo Adelabu from Oyo State, and Professor Ali Ate. Yes, that's also the professor, the Harvard professor. Yes, I think he's the one. We're also expecting that he will do excellently as he has done. Senator Abubakar Kyari, Senator John Eno, and Senator Sani Abubakar. Well, we expect that these people will do well. Former governors, okay, we talked about the former governors, we talked about the professionals. So these are our expectations from these persons, and we are hopeful that their tenure in office, they will do well. They'll be able to come up with something that would help Nigeria.
Lastly, before I let you go, Barrister Kintayo, the issue here is these people will be screened. And more often than not, we see when party men come on board, particularly those who are members of the National Assembly or State Assembly, they just say, take a bow and go. What do we expect to see from the National Assembly with respect to the screening?
Now, on the expectations of what we are expecting from the Senate for this, using what happened in the Senate in the last 8 years, with respect to screening of ministers, we have had a situation where some ministers they are heavily screened. So many questions, so many, they push some to the wall. They really want to know what some would have to offer. But there are some who I remember immediately they came to the house, they just told them, take a bow and leave. I remember that was what happened to Lai Mohammed, and some others. They just told them, take a bow and leave. Well, we are not, of course, politics will come into play this time around. I'm not expecting that the Senate will screen out any of the nominees. I wouldn't expect that, because the game of politics will also come in to play here. So I wouldn't be expecting that anybody will be screened out. But then my expectation from the Senate is that persons who will be made ministers would be screened appropriately. Ask them questions, especially persons you suspect would occupy a particular position. Ask them questions with regards to a particular ministry, or to even serving as a minister. They should be asked, some questions, so that we know that it is not just a jamboree. We know that we are bringing in persons who will do well as ministers. Questions that would test their ability. Of course, like we said, we have looked at the entire 28 persons that were listed here as ministers, and you know that many of them on this list, they are being rewarded for their performance. Many of them on this list, it's based on, okay, what you have delivered, you would get a ministerial slot and all that. So a lot of politics is playing out in this in the appointment of ministers. But then it is about the working of Nigeria. Nigeria has to work. The situation has to improve. Nigeria needs to get better. And if that would happen, if we need to get things right, then our senators should not play politics with the appointment or with the screening of these nominees. They should be able to get them to say what they have to offer to Nigeria. They should be able to get them and hear what they have to offer. Some time back, some ambassadors were screened out in the Senate. Why? Because they didn't even know the national anthem of Nigeria. You don't know the national anthem of Nigeria, and you want to go and represent Nigeria in another country. Well, for me, national anthem may look mundane, may look as a very tiny thing, which for me, I don't even see it as a criteria. But then, is it proper that a Nigerian being screened to serve in such capacity does not know how to sing the national anthem or to say the pledge? It will be embarrassing if there is any Nigerian that wants to serve in any of these capacities that will require screening in the Senate that don't know little things like this. But that aside, whoever is coming into office should be persons that are tested, persons that are trusted, and the Senate should not play politics with this. Whoever is coming in should be well screened, and necessary questions should be thrown to them, and their ability, what they have to offer, should be